Israeli police on Thursday reported a series of explosions on buses in central Israel in what they said appeared to be a militant attack. No injuries were reported. Police spokesman Asi Aharoni told Channel 13 TV that explosives were found on 2 other buses. He called on the public to be alert and report any suspicious objects to authorities. According to Assosicted Press, the explosions took place just hours after Hamas released the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages held in Gaza, the first of 8 hostages that Israel believes are dead and to be returned during the current phase of the ceasefire. Police rushed forces to the scene in Bat Yam, a Tel Aviv suburb, as they searched for suspects. Police spokesman Haim Sargrof says drivers have scanned all buses and trains, and those scans are complete. We need to determine if a single suspect placed explosives on a number of buses, or if there were multiple suspects, he said. Tzvika Brot, mayor of Bat Yam, said it was a miracle that no one was hurt. He said the buses had finished their routes and were in a parking lot. He said one of the unexploded bombs was being defused in the nearby town of Holon. Sargrof said the explosives matched explosives used in the West Bank, but he declined to elaborate. Israel has repeatedly carried out army raids on suspected Palestinian militants in the West Bank since Hamas' October 7 attack. As part of that crackdown, it has greatly restricted entry into Israel for Palestinians from the occupied territory.
מה זה הולך נהיה יותר גרוע, אחי.
בטח.
The UK and Norwegian defense ministers expressed Thursday their continued support for Ukraine and announced plans to strengthen security cooperation during a visit to Norway's border with Russia. According to Associated Press, John Healey said the UK and Norway would step up further the support we give to Ukraine in order to keep them in the fight, at a joint press briefing with his Norwegian counterpart Tor Sandvik on board the Royal Navy's RFA Produce. He stressed that Ukraine must enter any negotiations aimed at ending the conflict from a position of strength. Healey underlined that any such negotiations must involve Ukraine, amidst heightened concerns in Europe that US President Donald Trump is sidelining European nations, and Ukraine itself, in his efforts to bring an end to the 3-year war. On Wednesday, Trump suggested Ukraine was to blame for starting the conflict and called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski a dictator in a social media post. This war started because Russia invaded the territory of a sovereign state, Healey said. And this war could be ended today if President Putin withdrew his troops from Ukraine, he added. Healey and Sandvik also announced plans to strengthen the defense of undersea critical infrastructure they said was at risk of Russian sabotage. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is due to visit Trump in Washington next week for bilateral talks, including on Ukraine and European security.
We have met here today to announce that we are starting to work on a new ambitious defense agreement between our 2 countries. We commit to develop and strengthen our defense and security cooperation even further. We will also step up our commitment to work together to strengthen Euro-Atlantic security in NATO, the Joint Expeditionary Force, the Northern Group, and other multilateral forums. It is also our shared intent to strengthen our cooperation on securing critical undersea infrastructure. Despite Russia's focus on its war in Ukraine, Russia continues to place great value on its capacities meant for undersea sabotage. Over many years, Russia has continued to fund and develop military capacities meant for undersea sabotage, targeting Western critical infrastructure on deep waters. The United Kingdom and Norway knows that Russia is willing to utilize all means at its disposal in order to undermine Western cohesion and support to Ukraine. And we are concerned that Russia's decision calculus for damaging Western undersea critical infrastructure may be changing. Any activities that damage seabed infrastructure, including undersea cables, especially during periods of heightened tensions, risk understandings and misperceptions that could lead to unintended escalation.
So we have today signed an agreement, a declaration that we will work now to forge a deep, ambitious new defence agreement, and we'll do that by the summer. That will cover the need both countries and others have to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. Work we're doing together here on Proteus, our UK ship, and Bison, your Norwegian ship, moored alongside. We will bring our militaries closer together, and we've spoken to our UK commandos and Royal Marines that are exercising with yours in the High North in Norway, not just exercising, but beginning now joint training for missions. And on Ukraine, we've said as two European nations that we will step up further the support we give to Ukraine. Ukraine is still fighting. We must keep them in the fight. We must try and keep them strong to secure that peace for the long term. And as two nations, Norway and Britain, we jointly lead the maritime coalition of a dozen nations that is supporting Ukraine, especially with maritime power, and helping them build up their own power for the future. So finally, this is the talk of Europe stepping up to support Ukraine, stepping up for European security. This is the talk of those European nations in action here, Norway and the UK together. Finally, one of the reasons that I wanted to join Tore here in Norway was also to remind people that we look at the Russian war in Ukraine, but Russia remains a threat beyond Ukraine, and Russia's aggression is not confined to Ukraine, and we have to meet that challenge and confront that together. This war started because Russia invaded the territory of a sovereign state. This war is continuing because the Ukrainians are fighting with great courage, military and civilians alike. And this war could be ended today if President Putin withdrew his troops from Ukraine. We all want to see an end to the fighting. We all want to see a durable peace. We all recognize that that peace must come through strength. President Trump has said that. President Zelenski has said that. And our special job as defense ministers is to continue to support Ukraine in the fight. We've been two European nations providing strong military help to Ukraine. We will continue to do that, and we will step that up, and part of our discussions have been today about how we do so. And we are ready in the UK also to play a part if we get to a point where the fighting stops and security guarantees are required for the long term, because the one feature of any ceasefire and any peace is that it must not be something that is broken again by Russia re-invading Ukraine. Well, first of all, there are no negotiations, there are just talks. Any negotiations about Ukraine have to be involved with Ukraine. And in many ways, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Our Prime Minister has made the commitment that if we reach a ceasefire, we reach an end to the fighting, security guarantees will be needed, and Britain is ready to play a full part in that. And we're leading some of the detailed discussions about what may be needed, but I'm certainly not going to give you any detail that's going to make President Putin the wiser. Fundamentally, though, the war is still being fought. Russia is still bombing, firing on, launching drones, not just on Ukrainian troops, but on Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainians are still fighting, and our job is to support them in that fight, to keep them as strong as they can be when they come to the negotiating table. Support them on the battlefield, support them at the negotiating table when they choose to talk.